Right. We're
There we
live.
go. Go ahead.
Everyone. I would suggest everybody probably mute themselves just in case. But thank you for being with us. My name is Meg James. I'm with the Hilton Head Area Home Builders Association, Executive Officer. And I am here with our Workforce Development Task Force, chaired by Ms. Linda Klingman with HR Coastal. And we have an amazing group of folks. And this is our first of many town halls that we hope to bring to you live. So please tune in, get those questions ready. But Linda, I turn it over to you.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. I would like to introduce our speaker today, Eric Esquivel. Eric is a publisher of Isla Magazine, and he's also very, very active in the immigrant community. He has lived in Hilton Head for a number of years, grew up here, went away for a little while and did corporate work, and then decided to come back and join us. He got his senses back and came back to the Lowcountry, and we are delighted to have him. So I'll let Eric take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm sorry we can't be together in person, but we make do with what we can. Again, Eric Esquivel with Isla Magazine. We are a Hispanic media company that's been in circulation for 20 years. My brother, sister, and I grew up on Hilton Head to a Colombian father and an American mother, and we were brought up cross-culturally and saw the opportunity after our undergraduate and postgraduate studies to start Isla Magazine here on Hilton Head. Isla now covers a huge swath of territory from Hinesville all the way to Charleston, and our other brand, Latinx Today, which is a digital newspaper, and now 10 weeks in, we have a weekly 30-minute news program that we record here in our own studio on Hilton Head. Right, we're neighbors with the Home Builders Association, as a matter of fact, and that airs Fridays at 8 p.m. Through our Facebook page and YouTube page. And I also want to start off by telling everybody Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. In 1988, Ronald Reagan signed into legislation Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrating the diversity, the culture, and the rich background of all Latinos. And that goes from September 15th to October 15th. So this is great to be being able to present to you all today, especially during Hispanic Heritage Month. And again, thank you so much. I know the focus group is on workforce development. And so I'm going to start off with talking about national demographics, state, and then local, and then the makeup of the Hispanic population. And then I'm going to speak about the culture, voting, home buying, trades, immigration, youth, DACA, and then best practices for you all to reach out to the Hispanic community. So on a national level, this is no surprise to most that Hispanics are the fastest growing minority in the country. They say by 2050, they will be the majority, and that's not to scare anybody, it's just the numbers. It's the reality of what's happening in our country. And about 10 years ago, there were more Latino babies born in California on one specific day than any other race. And just to give you that outlook. Also, Hispanics are the fastest growing voter segment in the country, and also the fastest growing home buyers right now in our country. It's a very young demographic nationally. The average age of the Hispanic community is 28 years old. The average household size is 4.6 people. So I like to joke that we're very romantic people. We like to have lots of kids, including myself. I'm averaging about 3 kids, and I think I'm going to stop there as I can't handle anymore. But it is a very robust, family-oriented, faith-based community that I always like to tell people are great neighbors to have. because, again, their family community who, again, is hardworking, faith-based. And what I like to talk about a lot when I talk about Hispanics is I like to say, let's put Hispanics aside and talk about immigrants. Because the story of what I'm talking about today is the same story of our Irish ancestors, German, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, however, the big immigration influx is from our neighbors to the south, which are Latinos. Some other interesting things are that Hispanics are starting businesses 10 times faster than the average American, and women Hispanic businesses are starting 10 times faster than anybody else in the market right now. And this is also true for Silicon Valley and technology right now. As far as state goes, we are the now, as far as from the 2010 census to 2020, which we will be seeing some data hopefully soon, South Carolina is now the fastest emerging state in the country. And the key word here is emerging. States that are already considered emerged would be our southwestern states, such as California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Nevada, Utah. So new emerging states are especially in the South right now. In the 2000 census, North Carolina was the #1 emerging state for Hispanic growth. Georgia was #2, and South Carolina was the 9th fastest growing. From the 2010 census, which I was our census chair for Beaufort County, South Carolina has now taken that lead in that new growth, with Georgia still in second place. Some specifics about the Hispanic community in South Carolina is they're younger than the average age. The average age in South Carolina is 26 years old. The household size is relatively the same. And again, why are they moving here? They're moving here because of opportunity. Just like many of our northern friends who are moving here for great climate or to retire or just less density, Hispanics, people always ask me, you know, what has been so appealing of South Carolina and especially the Lowcountry for Hispanics, and that has been the word opportunity, the opportunity in the trades, in the service industry, and in tourism. And also the climate is very conducive for the Hispanic community. And one of the biggest catalysts to our Hispanic community in the late 80s and early 90s was Del Webb Sun City, who brought a lot of their contractors and subcontractors out with them from some of their other operations. And it's very interesting to see the family connections and ties on a national, state, and just all around level. Hispanics are the most loyal consumer that you will tap into right now. And this is the same thing in the workforce. I grew up playing baseball for Brian Carmine's, working at Hudson's as a kid, with Andrew and his late brother. And one of the things we helped years ago with Hudson's was help them really staff up their business with Hispanics. And Andrew likes to joke with me a lot now that because he has such a strong Hispanic workforce, when somebody leaves or he has to replace somebody with his Hispanic community, there's always a brother, a friend, an uncle, or an aunt to jump in and take that place. And so that loyalty and that network is so strong. But again, it takes a very long time to penetrate into that network and for them to be trusting. As far as on a state and local level, some other things that are interesting from the 2010 census, Hispanics grew in Bluffton 2,999%. That is not a typo. And part of that huge number is the annexation of Bluffton's land that they annexed in. But the other part of it is people always say, well, what was the driving factor of that growth? And I always say home purchasing, home buying. And that statistic is even driven in Jasper County now that we're looking, even though Beaufort County is one of the most densely populated counties for Hispanics in the state of South Carolina, really pairing next to Dorchester and North Charleston and Greenville counties in Greenville. what we saw were the story of immigrants and economic prosperity. Normally immigrants come, they're renters, they establish themselves. What we saw with the Hispanic community was they were purchasing vehicles to build credit. They built credit, and then the first thing they did was starting to buy homes, and that home purchasing really took place in Bluffton, in communities such as Bluffton Park, Hidden Lakes, Lake Linden, the farm, the Buckwalter track. And what was really parallel and kind of funny was when Red Cedar, everybody knows Red Cedar Elementary School in Bluffton. When Red Cedar Elementary School opened up, Department of Justice under Department of Education came in because the school opened up 76% Hispanic, and they thought that there was gerrymandering of the district. And I sat back and I kind of chuckled and I said, it's great to see, you know, our government checking into these things, especially today, but there was no gerrymandering. It was all one Hispanic telling their friends and family about where to buy homes, all of them buying homes in the same areas, starting families, having kids, and Red Cedar was the catch-all. To give you a little better perspective of the Hispanic community in Beaufort County, with Beaufort County School District, on average, we're trending at about 44% Hispanic. There's certain demographic and areas of schools, such as Bluffton High School, which is 60% Hispanic. But overall, when you start looking at the elementary levels, you're more in the 60% Hispanic realm in Beaufort County. But again, Jasper County is now growing faster than Beaufort County because of that home buying. One of the things I know about my Latin culture is they love to buy large tracts of land and put multiple dwellings on it for multiple family units, meaning we're seeing at times 2 to 3 generations of families living together. And part of that is Jasper County, along with the accessible tax rates and utility rates and everything else there. So hopefully that makes sense, but we are really seeing an abundant growth, a wealth of culture, and an opportunity for so much in our community. And I like to say there is no race, color, creed, and religion in market share. Money is all green. And I love to turn disbelievers into lovers by economics. So moving on a little bit, the makeup of the Hispanic population in our community here. Our largest population is from Mexico. And one of the things I always tell people is you'll hear me use Latino and Hispanic interchangeably, and you're doing really well as long as you don't call us all Mexicans, which happens to me all the time. And I just take it like a stride, no big deal. People tell me, oh, you're the guy that does the Mexican magazine, and I just nod my head. But it's okay. We're in the South. We have a lot of educating to do. And like I said, I love to turn naysayers into lovers through economics and showing them that Hispanics are just as Southern as them. We may be a little darker shade of the South, but all the values are still there. The love for neighbors and family and faith and hard work is all there. And so we have some amazing opportunities. So being that Mexicans are our largest population, our second largest population are Hondurans. And before I move on, why are Mexicans our largest population? I think one is because they're our neighbors to the south. Number two is the NAFTA was a big, everybody knows the North American Free Trade Agreement by Clinton in the 90s, early 90s. And part of that created basically free trade between Canada, the US, and Mexico had unintended consequences. And some of those unintended consequences and some of the lacking parts of the law were a lack of workforce ability to work within those 3 countries. My example is the European Union. Within the EU, the trade agreement there allows people to work equally in any of the European Union countries without any immigration complexities. We did not institute that when we created NAFTA. However, one of the biggest industries that we kind of tampered in Mexico was the corn agriculture industry. The US is the #1 producer of corn, and it was cheaper for us to sell corn to Mexico then the farmer, and the US is renowned for its subsidies with farmers. So one of the things that happened is we saw basically the elimination of corn in Mexico, and tons of people who lost those opportunities and work in Mexico had a huge influx, both legally and illegally, to this country. And that was one of the unintended consequences of NAFTA. But again, I think because there are neighbors to the south, a lot of strong ties with country and family. Our second largest population here in the community is Hondurans. And a large reason behind that is the TPS, what is called temporary protective status for Hondurans. And that was during Hurricane Mitch. I think it was El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua were three countries that were permitted temporary protective status. And that was extended by another 10 years just a few years ago. However, the current administration has been trying to do away with TPS. So those people could be in limbo if TPS, temporary protective status, is taken away. Next to that, to be honest with you all, our Colombian population is humongous, but we have a makeup of all Latinos. And I think my message to everyone here today is that Latino, Hispanic tries to bundle one group of people together. But to be honest with you, all these individuals have different values, trades, cultural pieces that are very different. And one of the biggest things I always tell people when speaking to them and that you can do when meeting a Latino is ask what country they're from, because it's a point of pride. It's a point of nostalgia for them. And I like to say Hispanics aren't Hispanics and Spanish isn't Spanish. You can use one term. For me, torta means cake in Colombia, South America. However, if we go to Fiesta Fresh, that means sandwich. Now, you can get into some serious trouble with Spanish in using words that could be really offensive also, which I have done, not meaning to, but there's certain words that don't mean anything. And then in another country, they mean something really bad. So you have to be really careful with Spanish. And it's not just good enough, especially for your image, to use Google Translator. Technology is great and people can get by in communicating, but when it comes to your image, who you are, and language, having a Google Translate button for your website isn't always the best solution and can get you into a lot of trouble. Everybody knows I have a presentation I do for big marketing executives, and everybody remembers the Got Milk program ad campaign out there. Well, that was translated by a big marketing firm that didn't really know what they were doing for the Mexican market. And when it came out, the translation in Spanish was, "Are you lactating?" So you can laugh and everybody has fun with that. Another great example of a miscue in Spanish was the Chevy Nova, which means no go. Everybody can remember that. So, you know, when speaking to communities, we really caution them. You don't have to be overcautious in just daily communications, but in your brand image and who you are, it's something to really be conscious of. One of the things that La Isla does, since we've been publishing for 20 years, we also provide translating and interpreting services. As a matter of fact, we translate for the city of Hilton Head, the town of Hilton Head. We do all of their press releases and information, hurricane awareness, and everything else out there. About the culture, they're a fearful culture. It's a fearful community. If I took all of you and put you in a foreign country, you would probably be more fearful, whether you spoke the language or not. I always try to put people in our Hispanic shoes by explaining, you know, they're in a foreign place. There's a lot of horrible stories out there of Latinos being taken advantage of, and they're a very tight-knit, verbal, communicative community, which also has its flaws. There could be a lot of rumors and myths that are spread a lot of the time. My uncle's dog's cat's sister told me that this is going on, and it's one of the hardest jobs we have in kind of tampering those rumors. You know, again, trust is a big thing, and the biggest part of the community, I think, in for you all in the future steps of the Home Builders Association, just reading your message, Linda, real quick. The biggest steps is building trust. Linda, repeat what your question was.
You had said that there are different values among different Latin countries, and I was just asking if you could expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, you know, and it's really hard to put Hispanics in one box. You know, I always like to joke, you never know who's on your roof doing your roofing. It could have been a doctor, it could have been a lawyer, and for economic or political reasons, they have fled their country for asylum reasons or economic reasons. And here they can't practice medicine without going back and studying and taking the MCATs and passing all of the bars and everything else that come with it. So they fall into another work field. As far as the values, it really depends on, you know, a lot of things that come. Mostly you'll find very family-oriented, hardworking, faith-based people. But from country to country, you can find a makeup, and depending on, an example is Venezuela. You know, I meet two very different types of Venezuelans. I meet Venezuelans, which we call very Chavista. They're very, you would go more along the lines of socialist, I guess would be the term. Or you meet the polar opposite, very democratic, very belief in democracy and everything else. And these practices and livelihoods start to factor into their values a little bit. The other thing we've seen is a lot of time, because business is so cutthroat in Hispanic markets, you'll find that Hispanics move here feeling that they have to be the same way and practice business in that same way, as very cutthroat or reduced prices. And that's been a big challenge with, especially in the construction industry with Latinos, where they're not unified and they're undercutting each other, sometimes below market rates and below margin rates, where they're not profitable to be doing business. And that's something that I see an opportunity for the Home Builders Association possibly to be able to unite certain industries to help them, I don't want to say get more educated, but more know-how, and maybe balancing that work so that it's not so cutthroat amongst one another and hurting one another. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So we have, what's really funny is we have Argentinians, we have Venezuelans. Venezuelans are probably our biggest influx community right now. And education ratings for their children are through the roof. I know a variety of Venezuelan children that were moved up by 1 year because of their education background coming here. So they're in class, they're supposed to be a 7th grader, but they're an 8th grader because they were so advanced compared to our education system. Something that's interesting, we have a lot of Argentinians and Uruguayans here, and they're all from the same city. It's like they told each other and they all came. If you're Uruguayan, they're from Paysandú. And if you're Argentinian, you're from Mendoza, the wine mountain country of Argentina. So it's very interesting to see how tight knit and how they all arrived here to the Lowcountry. Some other cultural flares is we can be very passionate and very emotional sometimes, more so than the average person. And you'll see that sometimes in meetings, or you'll see hands flaring and it'll look like somebody's furious, but it's more of just the passion and everything else that goes with it. Something very interesting is the voting. Hispanics are one of the fastest emerging voters in the country. They have, they're hard to get to start voting, but once they start to vote, they have the highest propensity to keep voting. In South Carolina is probably one of the only states where we're still not seeing a majority. Most states are seeing a majority growth in minority voting. South Carolina is still one of the only states where the growth is still in white America. However, there's an estimated 118,000 Hispanic voters in South Carolina. And the biggest contributor generation-wise to voting is Generation Z, which is the ages 18 to about 24. Again, you heard the statistics early on about Hispanics and their average age. Well, what we're seeing now is we're seeing their kids coming of age and really being more mainstream American, speaking Spanglish, even losing their language at times, which is one of our biggest challenges we're having is, trying to encourage parents not to be ashamed to speak Spanish to their kids. Don't be afraid of negative repercussions or racism toward yourself because your kids are bilingual. And so that is one of the challenges. And I will speak candidly, we are in the South, y'all, and I say y'all. They're coming back from Dell Computer Corporation where we were looking 20 years down the road. I was really dumbfounded by the bias when I came back to the Lowcountry. I love South Carolina. I love my home. And I'm here trying to make it different and open eyes. But there is an inherent Southern bias that sometimes does not understand the value of this demographic like other states or other regions. And I think the sooner we can get around that, wrap our arms around how we integrate this community and how we help them integrate also, because one of the big things that we're advocates for isn't just telling people about Hispanics, it's also holding Latinos accountable and getting them to integrate also. And statistically, I'd like to share that Hispanics are learning English faster than any past generation of immigrants to this country. And one of the reasons behind that is technology. But we have to remember, because I'm asked the question all the time, why don't Hispanics learn English faster? Well, English is the second hardest language to learn, and it takes usually a generation. My father, who came to the United States in 1964 on a Rockefeller scholarship to study medicine, to the day he passed away, he had one of the most thick accents where my good old Kentucky wife could hardly understand him on the phone. So again, it takes a generation, and we have to be patient as human beings and remember that and make people feel comfortable to speak English, because the biggest factor in learning a language as an adult is fear of embarrassment. And so the worst thing you could do to somebody is criticize them for trying to speak another language, because if you only speak one language, they're already on their way to 2 languages. We really should be applauding those people. That really hits on voting. I want to share with you all that we have a nonprofit called the Lowcountry Immigration Coalition that we house here, fund. People always ask, who is your funding source? I always say La Isla. We just get it done with the staff and everybody else. We work around the state to educate, inform. We challenged a state law years ago in 2012 that was a show me your papers law, not to advocate on behalf of illegal immigrants, but on a way to say immigration should be solved at the federal level, not on state and local levels. And it was a copycat law of Arizona, and we were able to defeat that law just because it was putting the wrong burden on the employers' backs instead of keeping it in the federal government. Just recently, we purchased all 3,700 the contact information from the voter registration for voters, for Hispanic voters. There's 3,700 registered voters in Beaufort County, and we just recently did a mailing in collaboration with the League of Women Voters to remind our Latinos that are registered to vote that it's not only their obligation, but it's their freedom to get out and vote. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Home buying. Hispanics are the fastest consumer of homes right now in the country. They may not be the biggest homes they're buying, the most expensive, but they're buying homes, they're buying furniture, and they're having lots of babies, like I said before. We created a birthing program we helped build with Hilton Head Hospital. And just to give you an example, Hilton Head Hospital used to, since 1974, when it was founded, they used to only birth about 90 babies a year. After we created Genesis, which was a basically full-term cash paying clinic that got the Latino community into the system. They're now birthing over 400 babies a year, and we convinced Coastal Carolina to reopen up their OB unit, and they're now birthing over 800 babies a year, a majority of them being Hispanic babies out there, to give you just some good demographics. Let's talk about the trades. Hispanics are making up the bulk of the new development in the trades. I don't have to really reiterate to you all, especially the Home Builders Association, who are the people out doing the work for home builders. And as we see, not only are they doing the work, they're starting to open up their own companies and be very successful in that. I see Meg there nodding her head. Do you have anything you want to add, Meg?
Just that I think you're spot on. I'm seeing more and more Hispanic owned companies joining the association. And I think the number one thing we hear is they want to see more people that look like them at our events. So I want to help make that happen.
Good. Thank you. So the trades are the area that you have an opportunity. Next I want to talk about immigration and youth and DACA. I don't know if everybody knows about DACA. In this country, we have an immigration problem. Our country has not adapted. Our immigration system hasn't been brought to a 21st century type of forum where it's working for the international trade of goods with people that is happening in the 21st century. Our immigration system is outdated and antiquated. And until our federal government gets off their butts and updates our immigration system to work with 21st century free trade agreements, we're going to have a struggle. And the facts are this, y'all. We are mainstream America, white America, Black America is birthing less babies. But not only that, is we are not raising our kids to always be in the trades. And as my dad used to say, no matter what you do, do it well. However, I wasn't raised, I may choose to be in the trades, but that's not how I was raised. He focused on education, education, education. And Germany is a great example of a country who there's no country who has a perfect immigration system, but Germans are very parallel to us. They're very forward-thinking, technology-driven. But the one thing they're doing different is they're acknowledging that they don't have the youth workforce for trades and labor. And so they have a very progressive immigration system that's, again, I say, it's not perfect, but they're acknowledging they need people to come to their country to do certain jobs that other people aren't willing to do. And that is the same problem we have in this country. We have tons of jobs that people aren't willing to do. A&E did a program years ago inviting mainstream Americans to come be agricultural workers. And I think only one of them lasted over a day doing that work. So we're seeing this problem of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil when it comes to our illegal or undocumented community, because we need them and we're forcing good businesses to hire unscrupulously, not that they want to, they just don't have any other options. There's no pathways. The pathways to citizenship or even temporary labor and workforce, and Linda, you probably dealt with some of the visa issues and those allotments for visas like H-1B visas and the J-2 visas, those get filled within a day. And the demand is so much higher. Not only that, our average age in our country is aging out. And so there's study after study. I hear all the time that, immigrants take from our social services and hurt us. Well, I have studies that show if we could get people into the system, Hispanic immigrants would add to our social security system because they're so young and not taking from it. And they would really contribute more to it. So we definitely have an issue. We have people here that are undocumented. I think it's a huge part of the trades industry. And one of the things I want to touch on specifically, and then we'll have tons of room for questions, is DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. DACA was proposed as legislation known as the DREAM Act. And it was really developed by the US military as a recruiting tool during our beginning wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. If a youth was brought here, a DACA person is somebody that was brought here as a youth with no qualms to their own, as far as they didn't choose to come here. Their parents brought them here as a baby or a young child. And most DACA youth, deferred action for childhood arrivals, only know this country. They have not had the ability to travel back to their home countries. Most DACA youth only speak English. And they are the epitome of the cream of the crop when it comes to understanding both cultures and speaking sometimes two languages. So because the lack of legislation and the DREAM Act never getting passed, President Obama passed an executive order that brought these youth into our system and would allow them to go on to study in college. Because prior to that, if you weren't in the system, you can't go on to study at a 4-year or 2-year institution. And so, and DACA has, I think it's Senator Lindsey Graham that said most of his family wouldn't qualify for DACA because how stringent its restrictions are. It's very strict. They have to renew every 2 years. They have to pay. They have to either be in college or working. They can't have any type of criminal background. All taxes have to be paid. And it's a great thing that's going on. It opened up the door for kids to go study at 4-year and 2-year institutions. Well, one of the things that happened in South Carolina is when DACA came out, our state created a law counter to DACA that basically eliminates anybody from that has DACA for applying for in-state tuition. So all DACA students in the state of South Carolina pay out-of-state tuition. All DACA students in South Carolina, and there's only 3 states doing this, Georgia, and then the other one is either Alabama or Mississippi. They're not allowed to apply for any of the state scholarship funds, the Hope, the Life, the Palmetto. And the biggest thing that's really hurting our economy is we do not allow, if you're a DACA student and you graduate needing licensure in the state of South Carolina, meaning you're a nurse that needs to get your nursing license, you're a contractor that wants to get your building license, you're a barber that wants to get your barber's license, you cannot do that in the state of South Carolina. And here's the economic downfall. These youth are graduating with the intent to stay here in the Lowcountry, to stay here in South Carolina and offset the need to serve our retired community. And they're being forced to move to states like Florida, who are happy to have them come there because they cannot work here. So it's a real shame. It's a real economic loss for our community. And most of these young Latinos want to stay here living in our community where kids like us and Meg grew up mostly leaving our community. We're rarities that have come back here, but the stats on number of DACA, there's about 8 million DACA in the country. We have about 6,000 DACA in the state of South Carolina, and probably a couple thousand here in Beaufort and Jasper County. And just to give you guys a stat, I would say our Hispanic community just between Beaufort and Jasper County is easily 30,000 people and growing, but that number is definitely undercounted. And I would tell you rhetoric from the current administration has probably made it even harder to count our Latino community. Not saying that a family isn't willing to be counted that are citizens. The problem is if they have somebody within their family chain that isn't a citizen, just a lot of the back and forth rhetoric, especially on DACA, when the current administration came in the office, they threatened to pull DACA away from all of these youth who came out into the system in good faith. And I think that's been a downfall because it's made Hispanics very fearful and untrusting of what's going to happen next in their communities.
Eric, if I may interrupt, I'm Karen Gilbert. I'm the Career and Tech Ed Director for the school district, and I really appreciate Meg and Linda having you on. And thank you so much for your positive message that you're sending out. So I have a question. I think it goes along with this actually too. How can we, as a school district, particularly at the high school level, promote those career pathways that we do have that's open to all students, and particularly not just the trades, but IT healthcare, because we don't want to set a certain group with the stigma of, oh, you're only on the path for this. So not only we struggle for all kids, hey, career and tech ed has excellent jobs that pay well, do well. What can we do better to promote that out to the community and the parents so that they can ask their counselors to say, hey, or check into this? And then the second question I have for those DACA students, are there things underway that would help them if they've been in the country for a while, they've been outstanding students? I know several high GPAs, part of the valedictorian, salutatorian. Is there a way to do a pathway to citizenship that's less convoluted? So two things. How do we help promote to parents what we already have going on as far as career pathways and not holding it down to a stigma of just trades? And is there anything in the works about pathways to citizenship for DACA?
You know, I'm going to start with the second question first. Is there isn't right now. You know, we and you all as an organization that has lobbying power, you know, I will tell you, Tom Davis, Jeff Bradley, who lives 4 doors down from us, they didn't even know this law existed. They didn't know the negative ramifications. They never thought about the unintended consequences. And I will tell you, Allie Cadmus over at TCL, if you guys know her, she's one of the dean, not deans, but in recruiting, she's having to tell her DACA kids, when you graduate, you're going to have to move. And it's sad. So right now there is no pathway. It's up in the air. There's the question of whether it's going to be taken away. We really need to be lobbying twofold. On the state level, there's a piece of legislation to get rid of these oppressive oppressive law that I was speaking about, that would free up for DACA kids to be able to pay in-state tuition, to be able to get the grant money that's out there for the Palmetto and the scholarship, but also that would give licensure to these kids, because the federal government sees them as part of the system. They're in the system. They're paying taxes. They have social security numbers. The other lobbying has to happen at the federal level. Telling our legislators at the federal level, first of all, telling our state legislators to stay out of the immigration, because the worst thing we could have is a patchwork of different immigration laws in different counties, states, and different states. We need the federal government to do their job and get the immigration system fixed. There's an estimated 11 million undocumented people in this country. And I will tell you, the majority of them aren't bad people. You'll find bad apples in every group. Most of them just want to work. And I have people come up to me all the time, Karen, and say, why don't they just go get their citizenship? People don't realize that doesn't work like that. You can't just go get your citizenship. And there's a lot of people that don't come here and just cross the border illegally. They come on a visa, such as an H-1B visa to work. And then what they do is they end up overstaying. And if you overstay, you're done. You have a 10-year bar. There's no resolution to it. You have to leave for 10 years and come back. Yeah, did they break the law? Yes. Should we find solutions around this? I think so, because we need these people and there's good people out there. So that's the DACA piece, first of all. As far as
Eric, could I ask what is the state law that they have going now that is up for renewal? I'm sorry, I'm not saying it right. What is the state law that we should lobby so that we can help the DACA students?
I don't have it in front of me, but what I can do is afterwards, Linda, is I can get you the bill number and everything that's proposed.
I'd appreciate that.
And
or I could probably Google it.
Okay, but I can get it for you really quick and get it over to you. As far as Beaufort County goes, I want to first of all say Beaufort County has been an example of success when it comes to Hispanics. Every school has Hispanic liaisons. Their ESOL programs are phenomenal. They've done an amazing job recruiting in the school system, in administrative positions, in reception positions for bilingual talent. And most recently, we hired a superintendent that is Hispanic. And I think that speaks thousands and miles of foresight. Dr. Frank Rodriguez comes out of Miami-Dade County area. He's dealt with the Hispanic community. He knows the nuances, the drama that goes with the community and the passion. And, you know, he said best, Hispanics, whether, you know, they're 60% or 50% or 40%, really they're all 5%ers, because you got 5% Mexican, 5% Colombian, 5% Cuban, 5% Puerto Rican, and he really gets it. So I think, first of all, at the very highest level, the school district is really foreseeing a future bringing somebody like him in, so we're blessed. Secondly, what else could we be doing? I think the first thing is the misperception. There's too many times I hear from kids that they're perceived to be illegal or undocumented, or they're never asked. And there's a sensitivity issue that in public schools, Plyer versus Doe says the school district isn't allowed to ask if students are documented or not. However, there's a federal guideline document that I gave to Moss years ago and Dr. Rhodes years ago, that is a guideline on how to deal with undocumented students in public schools. And really that has to start at the guidance counselor level. The guidance counselors really have to, without breaking the law, Plyer versus Doe, it's South Carolina Bill 3404. Thank you, Linda. Would reduce restrictions on DACA students. I appreciate that, Linda. There's this perception that Latino kids are undocumented a lot of the time, or somebody will be like, why are you going to go to this? And these are from students that have shared with me. Why are you going to go to that college career day? You can't go to college. So I think we've got to break perceptions. We've got to really ingrain in the brains of our guidance counselors and teachers and administrators that you don't know who you're dealing with until you really get to know them. We can't assume anything. And we have to get more engaged and truly understand the psychology and make these students feel comfortable to open up, because until we understand their backgrounds and where they are, and it's embarrassing for them. There's some kids who don't know they don't have social security numbers until they go to their parents. They're filling out a FAFSA form and they go to their parents and say, I need my social security now, mom and dad. They say, oh, you don't have one. I mean, that's very embarrassing for these kids. And they shouldn't be embarrassed. It's the reality of what the situation is. So they need people to be able to communicate with and talk with. But also, I think there's a huge opportunity to work with these kids, especially in the trades. I see the trades coming back. I see the trades as a huge win especially in our Latin community. And this is where, you know, I'll kind of start to wrap up and say best practices in reaching the Latin market. I think that you guys have a huge opportunity to be able to work with our Latino youth in our schools, especially in high schools, to maybe start to create a mentor or a career path program that we could start to engage. I also think back to the schools, parents need to be engaged more, and they need to feel comfortable and confident to be able to share their situations so that kids can be put on the right path by guidance counselors. And I'll just share one story, and without getting into specifics, it was a student here in Beaufort County who was offered a scholarship for football, a sports scholarship, and he accepted that. However, the guidance counselor that was working with him never knew that he was DACA. Got to the college, started pre-training, and a week within starting training at the university where he had the scholarship. And I don't know if you all know, you have to sign a commitment letter to play sport at that school, which eliminates you from playing that sport at another school. Well, a week within him starting spring training or summer training for college, his coach came out with a letter and said, hey, we didn't know you were DACA. We can't give you the scholarship and you can't be here. And he had to leave, and he lost his eligibility to play at another school. And it was a really sad situation that could have been relieved if the guidance counselor and that student had a closer relationship to be able to say, oh, you're DACA. Here's the restrictions with all of these things going on. But as far as best practices and how to reach the Latino community, I think, first of all, it's all about relationship. To this day, we personally go do all of our own distribution with the magazine. We have over 700 distribution points in 11 counties, 40 zip codes, but we go out into the community to build a relationship. And I think that's my first thing is I would recommend going to the community before trying to invite them to you. Also, establishing allies with the people, Meg, especially Meg, the Hispanic contractors, business owners that you already have. We need to create ambassadorships, some type of ambassador program where they can recruit themselves back for the Home Builders Association. Other things are just messaging. Until you invite them in their language, they don't know they're invited and they're fearful. The question they may ask themselves a lot of the time is, if I go there, is there going to be anybody there that looks like me? If I go there and I don't speak perfect English, are they going to look down on me? I think we've got to, and I know you all, you guys are the most open, friendly. You always are willing to help us at La Isla when we come knocking. And I know you all are there to welcome everybody. And I think everybody in the Home Builders Association gets how important Latinos are, but I think we've got to get that message out to them that they're welcome, the benefits. So we've got to do a lot of messaging. We've got to do a lot of handshaking and relationship building. And I think there's opportunities to give back, especially like I said, with the youth and career paths that could really build intrinsic relationships beyond just the tradespeople and people in the home building industry. I think I'll open up for questions at this point.
Eric, I wanted to add something here for those people who have businesses right now. If you are not very familiar with Nicole Bentley, unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today because she's hosting another webinar somewhere else. But Nicole Bentley is the head of the apprenticeship program throughout the Lowcountry. And she has been working very hard on setting up some youth apprenticeships, hopefully for January. So if you would like to talk to Nicole about that information, I can give you her telephone number. It's 803-849-4619. Her email address is Bentley, BENTLEYN @sctechsystem.edu.
Linda, I'm glad you brought that up because we're working in partnership with her, with Hilton Head, Bluffton, and targeting Beaufort High for the hospitality and tourism and IT pathways to get it started.
And she was telling me the other day that she's also been working in Estill with Hampton, and that many of those kids already come into Hilton Head for work anyway. So transportation isn't that much of a problem. So it might be really good for you to give her a call and just find out what she's doing and what you might be able to do to get an apprentice on board. And with regard to IT, I know that there's even a stipend that they will pay the apprentice, I'm talking about youth apprenticeship programs, but they have a stipend for youth apprentices in IT. So
Phenomenal.
there's a lot going on out there.
Because I envision that maybe we can do an article about her organization and program to our community.
That would be great.
Yeah, and we're here. I just want everybody who's on this call to know we're here willing to help. I don't know everything. So these ideas that you're sharing with me of connecting us, I'm really willing to put our foot forward to help communicate these programs, these relationships with our community through La Isla, through our news program, through our social media and digital newspaper, to really expand on this with our community.
And Eric, you may not know that Nicole just joined us in June. And of course, with COVID, she has been working mostly from her home, but she will be stationed at Beaufort County. She'll be stationed at TCL in Beaufort.
Okay.
So she's an excellent resource for all of us.
Great. I'm just reading a message from Karen. That would be great, Karen.
Okay.
Perfect. Questions, other questions?
Would we just email that to you directly, Eric?
Yeah, my email is Eric, ERIC. It's very easy. At laislamagazine.com, LAISLA magazine.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, Dale Thompson here. I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a statement after listening to your presentation, which is very, very informative. I appreciate the time and energy that you are spending as the owner of a magazine towards the Hispanic community, because of course it promotes your magazine, but what you're doing for the Hispanic community goes far beyond what advantage it might be to the magazine. I appreciate and I hope everyone understands just how much you're doing for them. My background is as a home builder, so I'm in the field every day with the folks that you're referring to, and I see the numbers and the balance and the blend of the different cultures. And the home building wouldn't exist in this country. It absolutely wouldn't exist in South Carolina, Lowcountry, if it weren't for the people who are on the job every day doing it. And your numbers, as I see it, you know the numbers exactly. I just see what I see. And I have to agree entirely with everything that you've stated as the participation levels that the Hispanic community contributes. There are a lot of different suggestions on how to improve things. Workforce housing is one subject, but workforce development is another subject. But the biggest problem can only be solved at the federal level. And it is systemic and manifests itself in all of the troubles and difficulties and challenges and unfairness to a lot of different people. And without a federal level solution, we're just going to be struggling with partial fixes and band-aids. And it's unfortunate that that is the case. And it doesn't appear to me as if the federal government is intending to do much in this regard, except argue amongst themselves. I used to build in the state of Maryland, state of Maryland is not a sanctuary state. It came close to becoming a sanctuary state, but there are counties within, for which these are the counties that I built in that were sanctuary counties. And so that is probably the biggest Band-Aid that can be put on this problem, but it's still just a big Band-Aid. And I think what's unfortunate politically is many politicians that are in favor of a solution, they only seem to be in favor of a solution that keeps the Hispanics on our bus, but in the back seat. And I think that is about as wrong as it can be. And we all need to sit anywhere we want on the bus. And I would like to say I know of a solution, but I don't. But I'd like to contribute to as many Band-Aid solutions as possible. But if there's one industry that's affected the most by this, it's got to be home building in South Carolina, because our agricultural industry, I could be wrong, doesn't rely on it as heavily as other states in this union. But our home building industry, it'd be over for us. And it'd be over for the consumers that want new houses. And it'd be over for people who want to move here, because we don't have enough houses for everybody that wants to move here. So this problem is bigger than what most people realize it to be, because it just hasn't completely broken yet. So
Speaking to Dale's point, then a good thing might be to contact your legislators. Contact Senator Davis and Representative, help me out, Herb Skerman, and whoever else might be your representatives, and just let them know that we need to look at 3404 and try to get licensure from these people who right now are hanging in limbo. And we're educating them and sending them to other states. We need them here.
Yeah,
Yes, we're educating these
3404, but
folks.
who mentioned it?
We're educating these folks, and then we're forcing them to leave so this state doesn't become the beneficiary of their intelligence.
just hit it spot on. And to me, that, you know, let me give you a cultural something that goes on in Latin America. Most Latinos don't go away to college like we do here. They stay living at home, and that's what we're seeing with USCB and TCL. USCB has one of the highest enrollments of Hispanics in the state of South Carolina because, one, we worked with them to create programs and outreach, but two, because Hispanics want to stay with their family here. And so compared to the other kids growing up here who are most likely to leave, we have a huge windfall with these kids wanting to stay here, but the state's really working against us. And I'd like to comment, you know, on the federal level. People always ask me, well, then what's your solution to this, you know, immigration? And I say something, even a temporary worker program that would allow people to come and go freely, you could tax them higher, but something that opens up the borders for opportunity. Again, you never want to take jobs away from people who can do them here, who are citizens. But the reality is, and you know this best, there are people here who want to do these jobs, a lot of them, or are willing to get into them. So if there are opportunities that are open, we don't have to make everybody citizens. We can have temporary worker program that allows people to come and go, but still taxes them higher. That's a benefit to the country, and make it work. It just comes down to our parties coming to an agreement and doing what's right, because as you said earlier, Mr. Thompson, things are very broken and just band-aids. And until we get it completely fixed, and there's not going to be one sweeping, I told Mark Sanford this when he was our congressman, you know, he asked me, how do we fix immigration? I said, you can't do it with one sweeping bill. It has to be piecemeal, and you have to break it down and really look at each individual element to make it work. But you're spot on with everything you see in the dynamic that's going on in the little patch fixes until we get it at the federal level right. And I think that's where the Home Builders Association on a national level has a huge opportunity to lobby, because home building is one of the biggest industries in this country. And Hispanics play a huge part of that. So I encourage you all to really have your voices be heard.
I think that's a good point, Eric. Nationally, it's a big industry, but one that is unable to vote.
Well, I want to thank Eric very, very much. This has been very informative for us all. I think we all have a few takeaways, whether it's how to engage students or how to try to get help with for the DACA students, and just the demographics alone has been very helpful to me. So Eric, as always, you have been a wonderful, wonderful resource to us, and we thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Happy hump day.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye now.
Bye.